Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Book Goodie Author Series of podcasts. I'm Deborah Carney, your host, and today I have an author with a really unique genre today, Mary Bond. Hi, Mary. How are you?
Hi, Deborah. Thanks so much for having me on.
It's my pleasure to have you on. I've been talking to a lot of very interesting authors, and, you know, your story sounds even more interesting than some of the ones I've already interviewed. Why don't you tell people a little bit about your background and what your genre is?
Sure. I am a romance writer, a historical romance writer. I've been writing for many, many years. I started out in traditional publishing Zebra Regency romances.
Okay. Can you explain what a Zebra Regency romance is, please?
Absolutely. Zebra is an imprint of Kensington Books, a medium-sized traditional publisher.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to publish what is known as traditional Regency romances. These are romances set in the Regency period in England that's about 1810 through 1825, when George III was declared legally insane and his son took over ruling the country as the Prince Regent.
Oh, okay. That makes sense now.
Uh-huh. And these books are the thinner books, the thinner romances, 75,000 words.
Okay. About how many pages does that translate into?
About 200, 250.
Okay.
So it's a slightly smaller Regency, kind of the same size as our Harlequin.
Okay, cool.
And so I published 4 of those, a series called the Merry Men Quartet.
Okay.
And those were published in 2004 and 2005. You can still find them on Amazon. They sell for about a penny each.
Okay.
Shipping will cost you more.
Exactly.
And my last Regency was absolutely the last Regency romance that they published.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame.
they got out of that genre completely.
They did. They found that it just wasn't as profitable as they needed it to be.
Okay.
And so they stopped publishing them. Very soon after that, Signet, which was the only other publisher of traditional Regencies, also got out of the business.
Okay.
And that was the end of the traditional Regency romance.
Okay. But you're still writing that now?
Well, what I'm writing now is sort of a modernized version of that. I write now Regency set paranormal romances.
Okay.
Which are loads of fun because it's the traditional Regency it's a little spicier. The first Regencies were completely clean, no sex at all.
Okay.
And my newer one has some.
Mm-hmm.
And then I added on a paranormal element to the historical romance.
That just sounds like something that I wouldn't be able to keep track of. If I were trying to write that, I think that would be a little bit too much, a little too many facts that I wouldn't be able to keep straight in my head. So, I love the idea. So, what is the new story? What's the storyline for the new books?
Okay. The concept is the 7th child of the 7th child in the 7th generation is the most magically powerful. And traditionally, the 7th child has always been a girl.
Okay.
In this family, the 7th child turns out to be a boy.
Okay.
And his mother immediately wants to kill him.
Right, because he's not right.
Because he's not right, exactly. There's something wrong with him. He's a man. He's male. And because he's male, he doesn't have the magical powers he should have.
Okay.
And he is supposed to be this all-powerful person, but because he's male, he doesn't have the powers, and he needs to find his powers by his 21st birthday, or he won't attain his destiny, which is to become the high priest of all magical people, who I call Valen.
Okay. But it seems to me, and, this goes along with your story anyway, but it seems to me that if his mother killed him, it still wouldn't work because it would still be the 8th child if she had
That's right.
She wouldn't fix anything.
No. That's a very good point. And so, luckily, his father convinces his mother not to kill him on his birth.
Okay.
And so he grows up, but sort of shunned by his family, and especially his mother, who despises him. She's the antagonist of the story.
Okay. And the paranormal is just the magical part, the magical people part?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
All right, I get it. And now you've been traditionally published before, and this one you're independently publishing?
Yes, this one I have self-published.
And where did you self-publish on? Did you use, where did you self-publish on?
Well, it's currently part of the Kindle Select program.
Okay.
And that will expire, or end, I suppose, on August 1st, at which point I will republish it onto Barnes & Noble and Smashwords, and Kobo is now allowing authors to publish directly onto their site.
Oh, awesome. I didn't know that. Listen up, everybody. That's a new one.
I just got the email today.
Okay.
And so I put actually my nonfiction book up there today.
Okay. And what did you write a nonfiction book about?
Well, I'm not only a writer, but I'm also a teacher.
Okay.
I teach writing at my local community college.
Oh, that's awesome, because part of our podcast is going to be asking you your advice for new writers, so you'll flow right into that one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because I have been teaching novel writing for the past 5-6 years in the continuing ed program at my community college. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, it must be great, because especially in continuing ed, you're not getting kids that have to be there. You're getting people that want to be there, and they want to learn what it is you're teaching them. So they're more engaged, and they're not just sitting there falling asleep trying to, squeeze through to get a passing grade.
Not only that, but I get to meet the most fascinating people. Every class has people of all ages, from their early 20s through their 70s, and people with a whole host of experience and backgrounds, and it's just fabulous. I love it.
That's great. It's kind of like this podcast series.
That's right.
I'm interviewing over the course of about 5 weeks. I'm interviewing about 100 authors. So I'm really talking to a very big cross section from, medical nonfiction all the way up to quite a bit of paranormal romance. And you're the first Regency paranormal romance. So. I'm hitting all different levels and a lot of different publishing styles too. So it'll be interesting when I look back at everybody to see those of you that self-published and the people that traditionally published and what everybody's reasoning was to follow up. Now, you published on Kindle, and you're in the KDP Select program right now, like you said, and then August 1st you'll be able to go put it out on other platforms. For people that don't know, KDP Select requires you to be Amazon exclusive with your ebook, not with a print book, but with your ebook for 90 days. And once the 90 days are up, you can either re-enlist or you can, go on and publish on other places. During your time as being KDP Select, did you use your 5 promo days to give away your book for free?
I have used 4 of them.
Okay.
On May 11th and 12th, I was free for 2 days, and then I joined with a group of writers to be free towards the end of May, on the 24th and 25th.
Okay.
So I actually have one more day left. I'm deciding whether I'm going to use it or not.
Oh, you got to use it, and you got to send it to me and put it up.
Okay.
What you have to do is on the BookGoodies website, up at the top, there's a little button that says Kindle Book Free Days, and you can put it there and tell me what day it's free, and I'll be able, because I approve all the posts, I'll be able to go in and see when you're going to have it for free, and then I'll be able to download it and read it. Unfortunately, since I'm interviewing so many authors, even if your book is only a couple of bucks, I can't go buy them all.
No, that must be really hard for you.
No, it's okay, because some of them aren't books that are in a genre that I would enjoy, although, 90% of them are books that I would read at some point. But even though I'm an author and do other things, don't tell anybody, but I really don't have time to read much.
Oh my goodness.
Which is why I do podcasts.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, but this is why I do podcasts, because instead of having to read and write stuff, like sending you a form to fill out for an interview and then me having to read it, I actually get to have a conversation with you. So I get to know you by hearing your voice, and our listeners get to know you by hearing your voice. So
right.
There you go. All right. So now, is your nonfiction book is self-published as well?
It is. Both books are available also in paperback form from CreateSpace.
Okay, that was going to be my next question.
Yep, and my nonfiction book, it's called Chapter 1, O-N-E.
Okay.
That's also the name of my course.
Okay.
And that is available on at any e-retailer.
Okay.
It's listed at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and through Smashwords, it's listed at Apple, Kobo, Sony, Diesel, and I can't even remember all where else they've got it listed.
Right, they just send it everywhere.
Exactly. So Chapter 1, for any writers, you might be interested in taking a look. It's a general writing textbook.
Okay.
I cover just about, all the major topics of writing. So including characters, goal, motivation, and conflict, world building, point of view, story structure, dialogue, editing, everything. I cover them all.
And, wasn't
in
it
a surprisingly thin book.
Oh, okay, that's good. Short attention span. People are short.
Exactly, but that's exactly how I structured it, because I originally wrote it for teenagers, because I was teaching this course in middle school and the after-school program. And I know that kids don't have a lot of attention span. They don't want to read a nonfiction book that just goes on and on.
Right.
So I structured it so that there's a basic section at the beginning of every chapter, so you can get the gist of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And then you can skip to the end of the chapter, where I usually have a worksheet or an exercise.
Okay.
Or you can read the detailed section, which gives you the full lesson in much more detail.
Okay. I'm probably going to go get that, because even though I'm a writer, I'm a photographer. So since the Kindle Fire came out, and I like the way my photos look in a photo book on the Kindle Fire, I kind of specialize in photography books that don't have a whole lot of text in them. However, I had a son that did a lot of fiction writing and a lot of screenplays and a lot of stage play scripts that I have laying around that I need to do something with. And his fiction is fantasy sci-fi, and I already know I want to write the sequel, because I can see where he left clues throughout the book, telling me, or telling the reader that, we're leaving this for now, but that'll be in the sequel. You can just tell if you were paying attention through the book, and since I read it like 30 times, it became very obvious to me, while I was editing it, it became very obvious to me that there's supposed to be a sequel. And the screenplays are filled with dialogue. So I got dialogue down pat, but I need to be able to fill in the rest, the descriptive. And I find it interesting that you're covering world building, because I think 10 or 15 years ago, nobody talked about world building. It's like it's something new, or am I completely off base?
Well, world building has always been there. I guess people just haven't thought about it very much, because we're thinking about it a lot more with so much paranormal being out now, so much fantasy. But science fiction writers have always built worlds, and historical authors have always built their worlds.
Yep. And in this fantasy that my son has, he actually drew a map at one time of the world that this took place in. So I should have paid attention to that. But I didn't think about that at the time. I didn't think of world building as being a whole separate thing that you need to learn how to do, and you're like the fifth or sixth person to bring it up. So I guess there is a real technique to that, so that you stay true to your story throughout not only throughout your first book, but throughout your sequels. So that you don't screw anything up and introduce something that really wouldn't be a part of your world.
Mm-hmm. I know a lot of authors keep notebooks of the world that they've created, because they can get very detailed. Not only maps, but, social systems, political systems, economic systems, government systems, everything you can possibly think of. People build into their worlds.
That's really cool. And
it is.
It goes into the research aspect of things too, that you need to, as a writer, if you're going to if you're working in fiction, you need to have. A lot of writers some writers don't like to have a lot of structure, but you need to do research into, let's say, the Regency era. You can take some creative license with it, but if you're not true to some of the historical facts, people are going to discount your book and not trust you as a writer to know what you're talking about.
That is especially true with Regency, because there are some extremely devoted Regency fans, and they have read a lot. And they will call you out if you get anything wrong.
This didn't exist during this time period. She didn't know what she's doing, so I'm not reading any more of her books ever.
Precisely. That is exactly how it happens.
That's pretty funny. Now, when you were traditionally published, obviously everything went to through the traditional publishing house. Like, they did your editing, they created your cover. They did your, and since it was back far enough, were they still doing your marketing back then? I know they do a lot less marketing now.
Yeah, they were not doing very much marketing then either.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of that was up to me.
Okay.
But there wasn't as much marketing on the internet then as there is now.
True.
Now it's gotten actually a lot easier to market.
Right. Especially if you have a built-in audience that recognize your name and recognize your genre and are looking for more from you. I know when Judith Krantz stopped writing novels, I was heartbroken. I was like, where's the next book? I don't have another book. Where's the next thing to read? So
it's nice to be an automatic buy.
Yes. And a lot of readers, if they know you're authentic, they will be waiting, for your next novel to come out. They will be absolutely ready to buy it as soon as you put it out there. Do you have a single website for all of your books, or do the Regency books have their own platform?
I just have one website. Actually, I recently redid it, and so I did not post my traditional Regencies there.
Okay.
I'm hoping to get the rights back to some of them very soon.
I was going to ask you about that.
And as soon as I do, then I'm going to self-publish them, and they'll be up on my website at that time.
Okay.
But I do have a website. It's www.meredithbond.com.
Okay. And how do you use that as your launching pad for your books?
My website is Actually, I hope that it's a fun place to visit.
Okay.
I try and make it so. My front page, I always have a message up there that I update every couple of days just to tell people what's going on.
Okay.
And then from that landing page, you can go to my blog, where I blog about either writing or self-publishing. I post every Sunday evening.
Okay.
And I also, on Thursdays, I always post a healthy, easy recipe.
Oh, nice.
And I have a page from my landing page. There's a menu bar at the top, and there's a option called Fooding, Fooding.
Okay.
And that's where I post my recipes.
Okay.
And so every Thursday there's a recipe. And there's also, you can link to a page where it lists my current books, Magic in the Storm and Chapter 1. And there's also a page that talks about my formatting little side business that I've got going, because I know how to format in HTML, and for CreateSpace and for Smashwords, I format books for people who need help with that.
Oh, that's awesome. We are actually doing a separate services series, but for now, we'll just say, if you need your book formatted, call Mary.
Absolutely.
And that's what I get a lot of questions about myself. My books are fairly standard, not very fancy. And I've been doing KDP Select for a while now, and I'm just looking into like Smashwords and stuff, and I see where Smashwords does require some other elements that are not required by some of the other books. Mm-hmm. So it's important to know that before because I had a couple of books up there, but they're just sitting there, and I didn't know why, and it's because I went back in last week and took a look around, and I'm like, oh, well, I need to add this this information to the front of my book, and then they will put me in their extended distribution channels. And I'm like, that.
On the premium catalog for Smashwords.
Yep, the premium catalog. So I'm like,
right.
I didn't know it was that easy. All I had to do was this, and the rest of it is ready. So
right.
That's really important for authors to find someone like you that can hold their hand through it or do it for them, because they wrote the book, then they want to just give it to somebody, and they don't want to do traditional publishing, but they also, don't want to deal with formatting. They don't, electronic is one thing, and then moving over to CreateSpace.
Which is a different thing altogether.
Yeah, because now you've got gutters to deal with, and, placement on page looks the way you want it to, whereas with the Kindle and the e-readers, everything is flat.
Right. And actually the reader themselves chooses how they want it to look.
Right, exactly. That's what I've been trying to explain to new authors. They don't get it. I'm so glad you obviously, because you're doing it, but they just don't understand. They're like, but I want my page to look like this, so I'm going to put up a JPEG that has the text on it right under the picture where I want it. And I'm like, it's going to be too small to read, and it's going to not look right. If the person turns it sideways, it'll be chopped off, and they'll still have to scroll. So, that's exciting to hear. Now, advice for new writers. We kind of talked a little bit about how you said in your book, Chapter 1, it tells you, how to do various things. What's the first thing if someone comes to you and says, I want to write a book? What are the first things you tell your students, or that you would let our listeners know?
Well, the first thing that I think they should know is to know what kind of writer they are. Mm-hmm. They should know whether they're more comfortable as what we call a seat of your pants writer. You just sit down with a blank screen and go at it and start typing, and your story just unfolds straight from your head.
Okay.
Or there are plotters. I'm more of a plotter. I have worksheets for just about every single aspect of my book, and I plan it out in great detail before I ever start writing.
Okay.
So I will have all of my characters detailed. I will know them as well as I can. And I have my whole plot plotted out, my whole book plotted out, and everything decided upon before I even start with chapter 1.
Okay.
So the first thing you need to know is what kind of writer you are and what you're comfortable with doing, how you're comfortable working.
Okay.
There isn't a right way to do it. You just have to know the way you need to do it.
Okay. That's really interesting. One of the things I want to do, like I mentioned, I've got a novel that's like already presented to me that I need to do a sequel to, and that I might even want to fix up even more the way it is I was thinking about storyboarding. Because I've got, scripts, and storyboarding is something that you do. And
also you're a more visual person being a photographer.
Totally. You got it. Other people are like, what do you need to do a storyboard for? And I'm like, because I need to look at something and have it, I need to be able to pull the pieces out of the first book that I need for the second book. And I need to know where they go, and I need to know more about, the world that was created, so that I can be authentic to that world still. And I need to address those issues that were left hanging in the first book. Because if I noticed, someone else that's a fantasy reader is going to notice as well. And
so you need to go through the first book and make up scene cards for each scene in the book.
Okay.
And what I do is I put them on a big sticky note.
Okay. Yep.
And on my sticky notes have a list. I list at the top what the name of the scene is.
Okay.
And then I list the goal for the scene, what the conflict is for the scene, what the purpose, my purpose, the author's purpose is for the scene, what action or tension there is in the scene.
Okay.
And maybe on the back, I might put a real short description of generally what happens in that scene. And then I take one of those trifold display boards.
Oh, okay.
And I stick all my sticky notes up in order.
Trip to Staples coming up.
Yeah. And that way, you've got your whole book laid out for you right there in sticky notes. And so if you want to move scenes around, you just peel them off and put them where you want them to go.
Yeah, I mean, someone had told me to use a storyboard software. There's a novel writing software. And
there are a couple of very good ones.
If you know of some good ones, I'll have them have you email me those so that I can put those in the show notes. I tend to be even more visual than that. I mean, I love my computer. I have a 17-inch MacBook Pro. But if I'm writing, I need to look at the other things next to me. I'm so visual that I can't have, I can't put index cards into, a little index card file. Like you said, it needs to be spread out on the board. So if I'm trying to do this on only one screen, it would be like I wouldn't be able to see what I did on the software that has the storyboard on it. Mm-hmm. Do you understand what I mean? And still be able to type at the same time. One or the other's got to go on paper.
Right. No, I'm completely with you there. I keep my storyboard next to me on the floor, and I have my computer in front of me, and I can go back and forth.
Okay.
What you also might be interested in doing, because you're so visual, is creating a collage. Collaging is really popular with a lot of visual writers.
Okay. Explain to me how that works. I mean, I know what a collage is, but how, as a writer, would I?
As a writer, what you do is you find pictures either on the internet or in magazines of your main characters.
Okay.
And actually, with the internet, it's fabulous because for one of my Regency romances, the hero was an Anglo-Indian. And so I took a picture of a famous Bollywood movie star Hrithik Roshan, who's absolutely gorgeous.
Okay.
And I changed the color of his eyes. And then I printed out a picture of him and stuck it up on the wall in front of me. And there was Julian sitting there looking at me as I wrote his story.
Nice. That's a great idea. I think I might be able to go with that.
Yeah. And so you find pictures of your characters and you can print them out, and you find pictures of where they live, the home they live in. Maybe if it's set in modern times, you might want a picture of their office.
Okay.
A picture of their favorite places to go, their favorite restaurants, whatever it is that happens in the story that you would want a visual of. And you make a collage of all of these pictures. So you've got it next to you, and you've got that visual stimulation as you're writing.
That's perfect, because I can look at a photo. No one's ever actually brought it up quite that way. I can look at a picture and I can tell a story about a picture. Mm-hmm. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I did interview one author that said every Tuesday on her blog she puts up a picture related to her story somehow and tells how that picture is represented or impacts the story. So what you just said was something that made sense to me now for me to do it that way, or for other visual people who are out there thinking that, I've got the story in my head, I don't know how to get it out. Oh, all right. I'll look through the magazines and I'll find my characters. And then I'll get one of those trifold boards and I'll start, putting character sketches and stuff, up on that board. And then I'll figure out where my story goes from there.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. That was really great advice. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wouldn't have thought of doing it that way.
Yeah. I love music. I cannot write when there's any sound going on.
Okay.
But when I'm plotting and when I'm thinking, I'll play music. And for my craft of writing course, I now have music that goes with every topic that I teach.
Nice.
And I'll play a song to start off the class. And the song goes with the topic of the day. So I have lots of fun with that.
I like you. Well, I mean, you are, it's like on the next Food Network Star, reality show on TV, there is one of the chefs that is competing this season that is, he's very young, and he's a rebel. And he, Elton Brown actually said about this particular character, someone said to Elton, he really thinks outside of the box. And Elton said, I don't think he knows there is a box. And that's how I see the direction that you're going, is that you're not thinking outside of the box of how you should be teaching writing. You're creating your own box, or just blowing the box away, because there are so many people that don't understand the relationship between all the different senses when you're trying to write.
Yes.
Some people can only write when it's quiet, like you said. Some people have to play it out in their head first. Some people need to have rock music playing while they're writing, or
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've heard some great playlists that people play while they're writing.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to talk to those people. I want to know what some of those song lists are.
Oh yeah. There's some great ones.
That's a whole new idea of, for an author who is stuck, and can't figure out where to go next in their story, or they need some inspiration or whatever, is to put together a music playlist and think what's going through your head instead of what you want to be concentrating on. You get a song stuck in your head and you can't get it out until you hear it. Well, go play the song, and then that way you'll be able to start writing again, because the song will get the heck out of the way.
Right.
The other thing I do when I tell people who are stuck is that I tell them, if you're in or around New York City, or it would even be worth it if you're really stuck, to take a trip to New York City and just ride the subway for 3 or 4 hours, and you'll find more stories and more characters than you can see anywhere else in the world at any given moment in time.
I'm sure.
So, all right. So now we gave people some creative ideas about how to get their story started and get their book started. How about once they hit that marketing part? What are some of the things that you would advise as far as marketing your book, or things that have worked for you?
The first obvious thing that you have to do to market your book is to have a great website.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps a lot to blog. It also, of course, you have to be a member of as many social media sites as you can without seriously cutting into your writing time.
Okay.
Which is such a difficult balance. I don't know any writers just about who don't face this problem.
Right.
I think I've met one or two who have this under control, because there's so many writing social media sites, and it's such a wonderful way to connect with readers and with other writers that you just get sucked in, and all of a sudden hours have passed.
Right. And what are some of the better social media sites that people should try to get into their daily or weekly routine?
Absolutely Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people find Twitter really useful.
Mm-hmm. Other writers have told me they can't write anything in 140 characters, so they won't go near Twitter.
I know, it can be really tough. Which is why Facebook is great.
Right.
You're not limited. Goodreads is great.
Okay.
There's a new social media site just for artists and writers called MyWanna.
Can you spell that?
M-Y,
Mm-hmm.
and then capital W, capital A, capital N, capital A.
Oh, okay.
MyWanna. It was started by Kristen Lamb, and it's WANA stands for We Are Not Alone.
Oh, that's great.
And it is artists getting together and supporting each other and learning from each other, and it's just wonderful.
That's great, because that's the kind of site that I would want BookGoodies to become, and it's also in the main industry that I work in. That's one of the main. I have a forum, and I work with a lot of social media to make sure that people in that industry, who are also a lot of work at home people, mostly entrepreneurial and work at home, they think they're the only one. You know,
right.
They think they're in this all alone. And, you know, we've got a lot of nice support groups. So this sounds like a nice, wonderful new site to remind writers that, you know, you're not out there by yourself. There's, you know, you might think that you're the only one having this hard time working on this book. But there's, you know, probably several thousand other people, you know, within your state alone that are still sitting there, you know, staring at a blank page on their computer, or, you know, that can't figure out how to get this character from here to here. And, you know they want to go, but they can't figure out how. So,
mm-hmm.
And
so MyWanna is a great social media site.
Okay. Are there any others? Shelfari? Nobody seems to be mentioning Shelfari. Is nobody using Shelfari that much?
Shelfari is not a social media place, though. Is it?
It's kind of. I
have an author page on Amazon and a Shelfari page that go with each of my books that describe the book in more detail.
Okay. All right. I haven't looked at it that much, and because of the other industry that I'm in, I've not spent a lot of time on book specific community sites. I just know that Amazon wants me to do stuff on Shelfari, and that other people are doing stuff on Goodreads, and I haven't looked into the benefits of each of them yet. I've run a couple of giveaways on Goodreads, and I'm pretty sure I'm getting sales from that. But, you know, I have to divide up, like you said, I have to divide up my day into what gets the most attention that particular day.
Right.
And I don't want to be overrun with putting information on a site that isn't going to be of benefit to me in some way.
Right. I also just yesterday, in fact, joined Triber.
And how do you spell that? T-R-I...
Triberr.
E-R-R. Okay.
Yeah. And that's a good place where you can promote your blog.
Oh, okay. Cool.
That's the main point of Triber. You join a tribe, or I guess many tribes, and you promote your blog there. And there are people there looking for guest bloggers, which is terrific because that's a great way to market and get your voice heard by more people. And so, as I say, I just joined yesterday. Okay. So I am figuring it out. Actually, my blog this week is about Triber and trying to figure it out.
Okay. Very cool. Well, maybe we can follow up with you in a couple months and see if things like that are helping or if they fell by the wayside. I didn't get big into Pinterest, and all of a sudden I've got authors that swear by Pinterest that it's selling, sending them traffic and selling them books. And
I've heard great things about Pinterest, but I've also heard it's a time suck.
It's a very big,
and I don't have the time to devote to it, and so I've avoided that one myself.
Hire a publicist.
Who has the money for that?
Let them go deal with the Pinterests and the time suck places. Yeah, I know. It's actually one of the podcasts I did this week is with a book publicist, and it's a choice where you're going to spend your money, and if you have any money to spend or not. And like you said, all these things that you mentioned are free.
Right.
Even a website doesn't have to cost you more than $5 or $10 a month.
Exactly.
And you can have a professional looking site, and it's a tool because all of your social media needs to have some place to funnel people. Social media exists to send people to your website. That's another thing I preach to people. On your website, yes, you can have a Facebook like button. You can have people go like you on Facebook or on Twitter, but you don't have big, huge, the front. And I saw this yesterday on a book website, and I wanted to cry. He had a beautiful website template, and right there on the front page was, "Come follow me on Facebook." I mean, in 72-point type, He was sending people away from his website to go to Facebook. We're going to tell you all the good things on Facebook. And I'm like, no! You want to tell people all the good things on your website, and you want to use Facebook to entice more people to come to your website. So.
Yeah. It's a balance. It's really a balance to find out what works for you and with your time constraints and with your financial constraints.
Yeah. What would be your parting thoughts to someone listening to this podcast? We already said what would be the first thing you would say to a writer. Let's say, what would be your parting thoughts to people who are already in the process and just maybe need a little encouragement?
Absolutely. Don't give up. Don't listen to your demons, because there are going to be lots of little voices in your head saying, you're never going to do this. But, you can just do whatever you set your mind to doing. And if you set your mind to writing a great book, you're going to write the best book that you can possibly write. And then you put it out there and you hope that you make people happy with it.
I like it. Well, Mary, it has been a joy talking to you this evening. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share your thoughts with our listeners. And can you tell us once again, spell out your website for the people who are listening that aren't landed on the show notes page?
Oh, sure.
Meredith.
First of all, it's www.meredithbond, meredithbond.com.
Love it. And do you have a Twitter or a Facebook?
Thank you. Absolutely.
Why don't you
My
give us that?
My Twitter handle is at Mary Bond. That's MERRYBOND.
Mm-hmm.
And my Facebook fan page is facebook.com/Meredith Bond fan.
Love it. That's great. Again, thank you. We appreciate
Thank you
being
so
here.
much for having me on, Deborah. I really appreciate it.
As always, if you are listening to this on through iTunes or some other podcatcher and you haven't landed on our website, please go to BookGoodies.com, search for Mary, MERRY, and you'll find our podcast, and you can leave comments, ask questions, give suggestions for future podcasts. We have a Be Our Guest form and a Contact Us form. And we also have a form where you can list out your book information and your Kindle free days if you happen to be KDP Select with your ebooks. So I want to thank Geekcast.fm, who hosts our podcasts, and where you can find all kinds of other fun marketing podcasts. And again, like I said, Mary, thank you so much. You can find me on Twitter at twitter.com/Loxley, LOXLY, or at DeborahCarney.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Get writing, and have a great day.